they'll handle business versus Dallas.
We have too many people out there in our society who watch football and have decided they are now experts at the X's and O's.
I understand how you feel as the quarterback of an undefeated Power 5 team, but that is so incorrect what you just wrote.
I don't want to old man it with you too much.
But when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I trust. And that's all I got to say. Do you think that they're going to strip the championship once Jim Harbaugh is suspended?
That, I think, is probably the most satisfying. Hey, I don't know if you saw this, Shazier. The College Football Committee has weighed in with their final verdict, and this looks kind of strange to me. I don't see the Buckeyes anywhere in the top 4. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not even 4.
Where is Indiana at in these rankings? But I'm not going to say nothing about that. But I do see 11-1 by their name in the standings. So I'll take Cash App, I'll take Zelle, and I'll take Venmo. So whenever you want to pay me, I'll take it.
You'll get your blood money. I said the Buckeyes would lose 2 games. They lost 1. As it happens, it was to the arch rival, and it eliminated Ohio State from the aforementioned Final Four.
From Wondery, I'm Ryan Shazier.
And I'm Indiana University's Dave Damashek.
And this is Gridiron Gut Check.
Welcome to Gridiron Gut Check. Every week, I'm talking ball with Steelers icon, 2-time Pro Bowler Ryan Shazier. 5-0, you ready to give my takes a gut check from a player's POV?
Yeah, you say some crazy stuff sometimes, so I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, as it happens. And let's start it out with the big game of Week 13 in advance of the big game in Week 14, both of which involved the Philadelphia Eagles. Last Sunday, the Niners crushed the Eagles in Philly on Rocky Day, no less. The now healthy Niners are obviously the best team in the NFC, nay, probably the entire NFL. But isn't it time for the Eagles to panic? Do you think that they need to start worrying, given that the Cowboys await them down in Big D this weekend? They're still 10-2, hold the number 1 seed, which makes this trip this week not a must win, but they really do got to have it if they don't want to slip into wild card status. How say you?
To me, the one thing that I think about the Eagles is they'll handle business versus Dallas. Dallas, when you kind of look at it, they don't have a win versus a team with a winning record. And then you can say Seattle, but now Seattle's 6-6, so they're not technically a winning record. But when you really think about it, the Eagles have shown that they're able to win games in so many different ways. They understand how to win games when it comes to being close games, and they understand how to blow people out. Obviously, they slipped up versus the 49ers. I don't think the 49ers are going to slip up, so the Eagles can't either. But I think this is a situation where the Eagles are going to win, and I still do think the 49ers will find a way to get that number 1 seed. I think the Eagles will slip up 1 game. I just don't see it being to Dallas.
Well, I wonder which one you're circling then if it is not that trip down to Dallas for Philly. Either way, to me, I feel like, I know it's a week-to-week league, and let's not overreact to one game, but where those Eagles are concerned, this is their arch rival. This is the team, unless it ends up being the Dallas Cowboys. The towers that exist in this NFC are the Niners, the Eagles. We can make a case for the Cowboys pending the result on Sunday, and maybe there's a puncher's chance if Motor City's Lions turn it on down the stretch. We could make some case for them getting to Vegas for the Super Bowl. But I really do wonder, after on your home field, in this mini era in which we exist, the results tend to be consistent between 2 teams. I know that the Eagles took care of the Niners last year in the title game, or what was that, 10 months or so ago at this point, 10, 11 months ago. But of course, Brock Purdy got hurt in that one. You know that the Saints typically have done a good job against the Buccaneers as a one-off, hyper-specific example. I think I'd be pretty spooked if I were an Eagles fan right now that the Niners came into our joint talking stuff, and the Eagles were talking it right back, and you got housed by San Francisco. So the notion that the Niners, maybe the fallback is that you have in your head if you're a Philly fan is that this is the Niners at their very best, just about as healthy as a pro football team can be in December, and we weren't exactly at our very best, so maybe a January rematch will look better. But right now, I don't see a lot of hope for the Eagles. I know that is an extreme opinion to share, and if the Eagles wind up with the number 1 seed, I would be very scared about the Niners paying us another visit come late January.
Yeah, so I'm going to apologize. I just looked at the Eagles' schedule. I don't think they're going to step up to anybody. They have the Cowboys, then they have the Seahawks, and then they have the Giants, Cardinals, Giants. So, yeah, I think their schedule is very favorable at the end of the season. But the 49ers, they still have, they said like the end of their schedule is like the bird game. They have the Seahawks, they have the Eagles, they have the, obviously they play the Eagles, they have the Ravens, the Cardinals, and then it's another bird team. I think Atlanta as well. So I think that's the last 5 games is like their schedule. And to me, the 49ers are the definition of we're great when we're healthy. Because when you see McCaffrey's not playing, when Deebo's not playing, when Kittle is up in the air, that is a whole different team. And Brock Purdy's a whole different player. So I definitely feel this is going to be a rematch, but it's not going to end up in the Eagles' favor. They're going to need more things going their way on that day. They're going to need it to be snowing. I know it was raining. They're going to need it to be snowing. They're going to need it to be cold. And they're going to need all the extra additions that they brought in, like Darius Leonard, like Keith Byers, like Bradley Roby. They're going to need all those guys making big-time plays in that game as well, because based off of the last game we've seen, they're going to have to find a way to slow down Deebo Samuels.
Look who's got Ohio State still on his mind. Never too far away for you, is it, Shazier? You just invoked the name Keith Byers, Heisman hopeful from the mid-'80s
I said Keith,
there in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, my God. Kevin Byard. Oh, man.
Keith would be a nice linebacker in today's game. Nice pass catcher, third down back. Yeah, he could be pretty good there. Yeah, I'm not saying that the Eagles are necessarily outmoded up against the Niners, but based on that result, that would be a major swing for Philly to knock off San Francisco a month after the whipping that they just took in front of their home fans. And I think you assume a great deal. That Dallas team is very good. They have a chip on their shoulder where the Eagles are concerned. They just about got them in Philly a month ago. If Dallas gets them now, chaos underneath the Niners basically ensues, I think, in the NFC side. And suddenly what we expected to be a 2-horse race expands just a little bit. And the Cowboys are a factor come January. But back to the guy you mentioned where the Niners are concerned, and he's a fascinating case, Mr. Irrelevant himself, Brock Purdy, finally got Vegas on his side. So many fans have been touting, and in fact, Purdy's teammates have been touting Purdy for the MVP award. He now has the shortest odds out there, plus 300 at the time of this recording. CMC, Deebo, all those guys around him, not irrelevant pieces. When they're all out there, they look quite a bit different than what you'll remember a month ago when it was just CMC, but no Deebo and Kittle, and you saw the team come back down to earth a little bit. My question is now, with some national attention being paid to Purdy, he is the front runner to get the MVP. Why isn't Tua getting the same buzz?
The problem with Tua and Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy's starting to get the love now because with that dominant win over the Eagles, it helped him out a lot. But the difference between Tua, not even a difference, both of them have such dynamic weapons on their offense that it takes away from the talent that they show. It takes away from what they can do. Because with Tua, Tyreek Hill's getting 120 yards a game, it takes away from what all Tua can do. But also it's the same when it comes to Brock Purdy with CMC having these amazing games every single week. So the biggest thing is the NFL constantly nitpick on them, but they have the respect inside the locker room because they're the ones that's leading these guys, leading the offense, making checks, making plays to allow this team to be in winning position. And I think that they're going to be a force to reckon with. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tua continue to win, that his name continue to push up into the MVP conversation if they continue to win some of these games.
I think what happens is that people fail to see the forest for the trees. They fixate on one team in one situation and they lean into that. And Kyle Shanahan is among, if not the best play caller in pro football. So Brock Purdy benefits from that. And so then that becomes the narrative about that kid, that you could put anybody in there and they would do relatively well if you're playing for Kyle Shanahan surrounded by that talent. And I think that's also happening now with Tua and Mike McDaniel. But beyond that, we have too many people out there in our society who watch football and have decided they are now experts at the X's and O's. And so they take to Twitter or otherwise to decree, do you see how Tyreek Hill just saved Tua on that deep ball against Washington, and he made him look good? That's why Tyreek Hill should be the MVP, not Tua, and so on. The problem is that those people who are announcing that on Twitter are wrong. How do I know? Because Tyreek Hill, the guy who was the recipient of that deep ball from Tua, said, no, it wasn't Tua who was wrong. It was me who was wrong. And Tua threw me open. He corrected it with his throw. So I think these narratives get sideways and we go down poison paths that are not informed by what the facts are. I could turn this into a much more expansive conversation about who is qualified to announce what is fact and who is shooting from the hip as they tap into their laptop there. But keeping it to here, I think both guys are suffering from that, as well as a lack of inherent dynamism in their style of play. We're used to Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and those guys running around, and Jalen Hurts trucking guys, and Patrick Mahomes winning 14 or 15 games annually. Tua and Brock have yet to do those things, and they look more pedestrian in their body language, in their physical stature and beyond. So I think that dings both those guys. But I am here to tell you, it's wrong, Shazier. It's wrong. Both guys are great, and both guys deserve a lot of MVP buzz here. Although I would give it to CMC over Brock Purdy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because it's so many different situations when it comes to being the most important player in the league or on the team. Like, even when you watch Tua, you can even watch Jordan Love, and then as you watch Brock Purdy, it seems like these guys put in extra effort to learn more or to do more when it comes to building up their teammates, being around their teammates. And that's why guys are more willing to say, hey, in this situation, I was wrong. And because they understand that Tua or Brock Purdy are going to dive on the knife for them as well. And that's why I feel that Tua, Brock Purdy, even Jordan Love, the way he's playing right now, that's why they're getting much more attention and much more love. But Brock Purdy, the way his team is dominating right now, I think that's why he's the front runner compared to how Tua is.
Yeah, we live in a world of superhero quarterbacks who are massive difference makers. Joe Burrow is more, seems much more like a common man, and Tua and Brock Purdy are that. But yes, I think when you look at Lamar Jackson running away from NFL defenders and, like I say, Herbert and Allen and everything else, I think it kind of creates in your brain a little bit of a knock against guys who aren't doing that. But ultimately, pre-snap reads and all of that sort of thing still do matter in the 21st century in pro football. Favre, Rodgers, you mentioned Jordan Love, so I want to dig in on him a little bit. After outplaying Mahomes on Sunday, my gut is telling me the Packers may well have their third straight generational high-end QB. How say you, and talk about what you just touched on there, Shazier, about it's not just the physical deeds, it's also the comportment of these 21st century guys. I grew up in an age with Marino berating teammates to be in the right spot, and Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and so on. It feels now like many of the successful quarterbacks, at least, are just one of the guys. How say you?
This man, Jordan Love, is so amazing to see how he's playing, because you might be right. They might have their next generational quarterback. If you put his stats directly next to Aaron Rodgers' stats, they're identical. And I'm not going to lie.
His first year, Rodgers, yeah.
Yeah, his first year, Rodgers. They're identical. And then now, obviously, Rodgers, he was amazing when it came to not turning the ball over. We're going to have to see if Jordan can be like that the rest of his career. But Favre was terrible at not turning the ball over. He turned it over a lot, but he was a gunslinger, and everybody said it was okay. The one thing that I love about Jordan Love, you can see that he has a great relationship with his guys. He dances with his guys. He jokes around with his guys, and he's just getting involved with them. When Aaron was there with the same group of guys that he has, obviously Jordan Reed, not Jordan Reed, but he has Reed who just joined, Wicks who just joined, and then he has Musgrave. These are some younger pieces. But you see with Aaron was there, he always went to games with Bakhtiari, and he never really took the younger guys. But when he went to New York, he's taking Sauce Gardner, he's taking Garrett Wilson. So you just see when the quarterback puts in that extra time, and you can see they have a rapport with their QB, teams tend to play a lot better. And that's how Jordan Love and his Packer team is playing. The same guys that he had last year are killing it this year. And obviously, they have a year of growth, and that makes a huge difference. But it also, you can see that Jordan, and then also Coach LaFleur also believes in these guys as well. And when your coach believes in you and your teammates believe in you, you play so much better, and that's why they might have the next quarterback.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, but it is a funny sort of transition. So many of the tropes that we've associated with NFL quarterbacks, leader of men and field general and all of that, it may be giving way. And we've seen physically different ways to skin the cat, from running quarterback to big arm guys to guys pre-snap read guys, all different ways to succeed as a quarterback in the NFL. And I do think personality has now shifted a little bit too, because it used to just be type A, hammer versus nail, even with your own teammates type of mentality, where that has sort of given way to, like I say, just one of the guys, good hang, egalitarian approach, not necessarily the end of the world. And you do know Gutekunst and company are loving this as a reckoning against letting Rodgers go there. All right, let's move along here. Up next, did the CFP selection committee make the right choice? I don't know if you heard. Some people are not happy with the way this went down. Did the Noles get hosed? Could both things be true? Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. All right, Shazier, here we go now. Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama will be competing for a national title. But the biggest story has to be, at this point, with all due respect to the Ohio State and anyone else who might wish they had made the Final Four, it is FSU being left out. And I do feel bad for the Noles fans, but the committee made the best decision, I say. The best teams are in the playoff. I go back and forth on this as a man of justice. I know that they went undefeated, did Florida State. They also don't have their quarterback. You know that they would have very likely gotten destroyed. So I think this is probably what's best when there were 5 to 7 worthy teams and only 4 slots for them. How say you?
Man, so Jordan Travis said this: devastated, heartbroken, and so much disbelief right now. I wish my leg broke earlier in the season so y'all can see this team is much more than a QB. I thought results mattered. 13-0, and this roster matches up across any team in those top 4 rankings. I'm so sorry. Go Noles. Jordan Travis, I understand how you feel as the quarterback of an undefeated Power 5 team, but that is so incorrect what you just wrote. It doesn't matter when you got hurt. The way that y'all quarterbacks were playing throughout this whole season, and y'all probably had one of the easiest schedules for a Power 5 team to possibly make the playoffs in playoff history. They weren't going to be able to do it. The game versus Florida, I understand it's a rivalry game. They also had a backup quarterback. You only scored 24 points, and your quarterback had 111 yards passing. Then you get into a game where you know you have to win, and you know you have to have a little bit of style points. You score 13 points, 16 points, win 16-6, and your quarterback has 55 yards passing. Style points matter, and I understand the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the SEC had a gentleman's agreement. If we go undefeated, you go into the playoffs. But that doesn't matter because we need to see the best teams on the field, and Florida State, the way that they were playing at the end of the season, they were not showing that they were one of the better teams in college football. So, and I know a lot of people go come at me with like, well, Ohio State did it with Cordell Jones. Ohio State, when they had Cordell Jones, he went out there, dropped a 50-burger on Wisconsin, and they had 558 yards of offense and 0 turnovers. When you look at Florida State versus Louisville, and Louisville and Florida State together, they barely had 400 yards of offense combined. So it's just, I understand you did everything that you were asked to do. But when you have at least 10 teams in that mix, and out of those 10 teams, you think 9 of them could possibly beat Florida State without their quarterback, there's no way that you can put them in the mix.
I hear you on all that and agree with the vast majority of it. But it's also the thing that I keep coming back around to is that the SEC did benefit slightly, at least, from a little bit of lifetime achievement, or at least quarter centuries worth of achievement as a conference, and Alabama and Georgia specifically benefiting from what they've done the last 5 years or so.
I'm frustrated with that too. I'm frustrated with that.
I don't know, the idea that because Georgia won the last 2 and half of their roster is now on the Philadelphia Eagles as first-round draft picks doesn't equal the 2023 Georgia Bulldogs being the best team in the land just because that's what they've done the last 2 seasons. It should only be about this year, and Bama beating Georgia should theoretically put them in the playoff. And it also then requires, if you're doing the math on it and you're trying to apply some justice to this, well, you can't put Bama in, even though they just beat the number 1 team in the nation, unless you put Texas in. So now you put Texas and Bama in, that's half of the 4 teams. Someone is going to be raw and left on the outside. Obviously, the irony here is if there was still just the BCS, it would be Washington versus Michigan, and no one would really be complaining very much or nearly as much. But I also think that Bama benefits from the perception, not the reality, in the year of the Lord 2023, that the SEC is the best conference. It wasn't this year. The Pac-12 was better and the Big Ten was better. And as far as Florida State goes, the case I would make for them is they tried. They played LSU. They don't benefit from that because LSU was down this year. Why don't Georgia and Alabama suffer the same thing then? LSU and the SEC were down collectively this year, so maybe Georgia shouldn't have been in that top spot. And had they not been in that top spot, I don't know that it would seem as impressive that Alabama knocked them off. If Michigan had assumed the rightful spot at the top of the rankings, which is where they really should have been based on their quality wins, we would be having a different conversation.
Yeah, I follow that as well. And if you really think about it, the Big 12 was up this year as well. That's why Texas, I think, has the best strength of schedule out of all the teams. Texas or Washington, they have the best strength of schedule out of all the teams in the top 4. The thing that really frustrates me with this SEC conversation, and I'm going to just get on my soapbox when it comes to Ohio State a little bit, is think about this. Ohio State lost to the number 1 team in the country. Cool. They lost to the number 1 team in the country. Unfortunately, they didn't get to play in the bowl game. Ohio State was at 5. They fall all the way to 7, and 2 teams that lost. A team that lost fell before them. Fell less than them. But if you think about it, Alabama was ranked lower than Ohio State. So it's just like, what gives the fact? Like, are you saying that Alabama is better than Michigan for Georgia not to really fall? So like that's where I really just don't understand. I hear
what you're saying, but the structure is very specific, and you had hard decisions to make. Ohio State had a semi-valid case for consideration, at least, except that the Big Ten championship game didn't allow them for a rematch, which is kind of weird anyway if you run it right back. Ohio State, Michigan wins. Okay, see you next week. We're going to run these same 2 teams back. That's weirdly unsatisfying too. But, the Pac-12, for instance, did have that rematch, and had Oregon won that one, you'd have an even bigger mess, because I don't know how I think they would have sent Oregon and left Washington out, much like they did with the SEC. But as I think we kind of agree, the Pac-12 was better than the SEC this year. So I could make a case Washington losing to Oregon in a rematch that they had already won the first one of makes them more worthy than Bama or Georgia with 1 loss. boy, it's very murky stuff. I think the bottom line is, thank goodness that we're expanding to 12 teams, or we should just never have abandoned the January 1st bowls of the late 20th century, because that hash would have been settled just as nicely, perhaps even more neatly than it's going to be in 2023, because you would have had Washington and Michigan playing in the Rose Bowl. Then you would have said Florida State to go and play Ohio State or Georgia in a Sugar Bowl or Orange Bowl. They would have gotten whipped there, and no one would have had a complaint. Sad. Anyway.
So with the 12-team playoff, Oregon is about to play Liberty. But I doubt Bo Nix plays because obviously he's going to leave for the national team. He's going to leave for college. And then I don't know what Ohio State's game will look like because Kyle McCord left. But what do you think that game is going to look like? And do you think Liberty has a legit chance with them being undefeated this season to beat Oregon?
I don't want to old man it with you too much. I try to let go of things that I like just because I feel like that's what I've known. I think so often the human condition is about people get upset or worked up, and it's change. It's just that people don't want change because it makes you uncomfortable. So I don't want to get into that. It is sort of a bummer as we enter the holiday season to me, somebody who remembers the Holiday Bowl and the Gator Bowl and the Blue Bonnet Bowl, even I forget those bowls. The biggest brand bowls out there now are completely irrelevant. And I fully support, I always laugh when at this time of the year, when Bo Nix or whoever isn't playing and they're saying, this is going to hurt his draft stock. He's not passionate about football. Feh and double fat. And it tickles me that was, did it hurt CMC's draft stock when he didn't play for Stanford in his last available game? Of course, they should move. These guys shouldn't go out there. It's just too bad that the Bulls have no value whatsoever when for decades on end, for me, January 1st was the greatest day on the sports calendar. Because like I say, all hash was settled by those 5 bowl games. Fiesta and Cotton, Rose in the middle of the day, Sugar and Orange at nightfall. And like I say, 9 times out of 10 at least, you knew who the national championship was when you went to bed that night. All right, enough about this. It's time that we move on here to some quick hitters. It's time we roll out the nickel package. Remember now, Shazier, 5 questions, 5 very brief answers. Are you ready to do it?
I'm going to try my best.
We're in hurry-up mode here. The Chiefs failed to score 21 points for the 6th time this season. Tom Brady was right. If these are the defending champs, the league must be mediocre, right?
I definitely feel like the league is mediocre. I definitely think that when he was saying players are complaining more than actually trying to protect themselves, I completely agree with that. But when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I trust. And that's all I got to say.
You know what? I agree with Brady. He is accurate. As I say all the time, you can fixate on your team and wring your hands that they're not that good. But then I refer you to the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. They're the defending champs. Look how they look. You think they're feeling real happy about? There are a small handful of teams, fan bases that are like, we really have a shot this year. Everybody else is down in the dumps. Pick your head up, look around. It is a sea of mediocrity, for better or worse. Well, I guess we know it's for worse. Moving on, Tyreek Hill, and I do agree with you about the Chiefs, by the way. They're going to the Super Bowl. Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins, maybe they can interrupt that Chiefs run to the Super Bowl. They broke out a coordinated roller coaster celebration in their game against the Commies. Shazier, do teams put more effort into planning touchdowns, their touchdown celebrations, than they are game planning against bad teams? Deontay Johnson said that the Steelers were not exactly up for the Cardinals, said they took them lightly. Let's talk about the fun part, celebrations. How much goes into these?
Yeah, guys, especially on the offensive side, you think about celebrations more often. Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, he doesn't really do a lot of celebrations. Deebo Samuels, all those guys definitely have the time to think about celebrations because they're getting in the end zone a lot. So the Miami Dolphins have one of the most high-powered offenses in college, in the NFL. So when you know you're going to be in the end zone a lot, yeah, you're going to create dances. So when it came to the roller coaster celebration, I'm not going to lie, that is one of my favorite celebrations I've seen them do because it's so many creative ones. But my favorite celebrations were when Juju he gave birth to the baby, and Antonio Brown did the doo-doo brown. That was funny. Everybody thought he was pop blocking and dropping it, but he was just doing the doo-doo brown. But it was kind of funny. But on Thursdays and Fridays, normally Fridays, those when guys were kind of considered doing their celebrations, because when the other team, when like the defense is on the field practicing and you're normally in shorts or t-shirts, and Saturdays as well, you're like, you're just chilling on the sideline. You're just thinking about what you got to do next. And somebody might just come up and be like, hey, I seen this happen. How about we do this dance? Like, if you just think about Joe Mixon's dance, he just seen Dylan Brooks do a dance, and he was like, hey, I'm going to do the Dylan Brooks dance when I get in the end zone. And then the whole team did it. So some of them is just very easy to come up with, and some of them you have to, plan out a little bit more.
Let's move along then, and got to give a shout out. I know this one hurts since your Buckeyes aren't there, but this one is one for our producer, Hank. They beat Nick Saban at home in week 2. Now they're ranked 3rd by the CFP selection committee. And at the time of this recording, they're giving 4 in their semifinal matchup. So I ask you, Shazier, is Texas back at long last?
To me, I think Texas is back. Some people think Texas need to be consistent. Some people think that, Texas needs to, do this every single year. But to me, I will ask Hank this question, or I'll ask you this question. If you were Texas, would you rather win a championship right now, and then the next 4 or 5 years, you 5-7, 8-4, 8-4, 10-4, but you got this championship? Or would you rather be in Ohio State situation where the last 10 years since we won our last championship, we literally been the runner-up or the next man up every single year? So in my honest opinion, I think I'd rather win a national championship.
I think that's right. Yeah, I do think that different fan bases have different desires. Like I said, when the Kansas City Royals won the World Series in 2015, that's got to keep the sports fans of KC content for the next 25 years. And in all likelihood, that's all they're going to get from the sports gods. So they really better embrace that. I think when the standard is higher, as it is in Ohio State and down in Texas, the funny thing with Texas and with their arch rival A&M is that neither of those teams has been terribly relevant this entire century so far. I know that Mac Brown had his run with Vince Young, but that one set aside until Ewers and company did this year, both of those brands have stunk. So I think I'm with you. Take the championship. If somebody was offering you either or, take the national title. That's going to resonate more 25, 50 years from now than being in contention for a decade is going to matter, right?
Since Ohio State won the national championship, I've been to some of their Fiesta Bowls. I've been to some of their Orange Bowls. I've been to some of their Sugar Bowls. I've been to the Peach Bowl. And I probably spent over $10,000. And I'm not saying like I'm not going out of my way buying first class or anything. Just like plane ticket, hotel room, tickets for the game, watching the game, $10,000 of my own dollars. Sometimes I got a ticket for free here and there, but like $10,000 of my own dollars to go to the game, watch Ohio State either beat Clemson, then lose to Alabama, or lose by a field goal to Georgia, or just I've been to so many different games and watched them play in so many different times. You're like, man, come on, bro. It's like we're right here. We're right here. And it's like, so as a Ohio State alum and as a Ohio State fan, I'm going to still go every single year. I'd rather my team win that national championship, and then in 5 years, you're like, hey, here comes another team that's probably about to win another national championship. Let's go. Instead of like, for the last 10 years, you're like, oh my gosh, like, You're leaving the stadium wanting to fight random fans because there's like, the dogs are better than y'all. It's like, whoa, y'all lost on a field goal. You guys thought y'all were losing as well.
I mean, a title versus being in contention, to quote Nick Saban, Bear Bryant. I don't know who first said it, but much like the SEC, the title just means more. All right, let's move on. Michigan, Bama, Rose Bowl, Texas, Washington in the Sugar Bowl. Who do you think will win those two games? Let's get to it.
This is going to hurt my soul to say this, but I think the team up north is going to win it all. I think Michigan has one of the best running offenses in college football, and Alabama has been getting up a lot of yards on the ground. When they're going to force J.J. McCarthy to make plays, one thing that he has shown this season is that he's very good at improvising when he has to. When he doesn't have to, when he just sits in the pocket and you want him to throw the ball, it's really weird. He's not like the best quarterback ever. But it's like, oh, we need to make something happen. JJ really steps up to the plate. And then when it comes to Washington, I think that Texas, they don't have the DBs to slow down Washington. Obviously, Washington defense isn't that good either, but they make a lot of big opportunities in important parts of the game. And that's why I think Washington understands how to win in a bunch of different ways, and that's why I think they're going to win.
Sark has the Longhorns playing great ball for sure. I think Washington plays the most pro style on both sides. They have playmakers who will turn you over, the Huskies I'm talking about, and the way Penix and company sling the ball around, and with the return of a second high-end pass catcher, they get scary. I'm a little surprised that Texas, like I say, is given points in this one at all, let alone the 4, and Bama and Michigan are tighter. That's also kind of a surprise. Let's keep in mind, bookmakers aren't seduced as easily as the average fan is. I still am surprised by specifically what you're saying. This is not a high-end Nick Saban Alabama team playing Michigan who can really beat you up on the ground. And let's remember that Bama needed a 4th and 31 to get past bum Auburn before they beat Georgia, who is a very good team, but not as good, like we talked about at the top of the show, as the last 2 iterations are. So I'll take Michigan, Washington, the way it should be anyway, settling all the hash whenever that game's going to be played.
I think Michigan or the team of North has the DBs to compete with all these teams that we're playing against. Mean that they're playing against, but I think also their running game is more dominant than all the teams that they're about to play against. If Michigan wins this championship, do you think that they're going to strip the championship once Jim Harbaugh is suspended?
That, I think, is probably the most satisfying thing. You say, like, see, we win them without the trial. You guys needed this Harbaugh chicanery to get your title, so it barely counts, if at all. I think for your sake, I'm going to root for that. I don't know. The people of Ann Arbor are sending up to Mount Pius to defend themselves and calling themselves America's team has been a little gross, in my opinion. I do think it's going to be Michigan, Washington, and I think Michigan's going to win that game. I think we agree with that, as I think that through. My opinion may change next week, though, so don't hold me to it. Let's go one step further and get your opinion on the question that I just answered. 2024, you're taking the Wolverines. This is your official play.
It sucks for me to say that. I don't like them. I hate them. But if we're just want real analysis, I think they have the best odds.
You hear that? That's hell freezing over. And that's it for this episode of Gridiron Gut Check.
Make sure to follow, rate, and review the show on wherever you're listening. Check us out on YouTube on the Wondery channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you all next week.